So this is a follow-up video to my 1-year owner's review that I did last year. And in that video, I looked at why I chose a GoPod, I looked at towing it, storage, what it's like off-grid, did it represent good value for money, and was it the right caravan for me at that time? Now, my initial impressions have not changed, and I still agree with everything that I said in that video. But I've now had my GoPod for 2 years, and I've also just done my biggest ever adventure where I went away for 64 nights. So for a little over 2 months, I lived entirely within this micro caravan. Now, these GoPods are marketed mainly towards first-time caravanners, festival goers, and also those that like to go away for shorter trips. Now, although this was okay for my longer 2-month adventure, we're going to discuss if the GoPod is still a good match for me. And we're also going to look at how the GoPod is holding up structurally and also how is it doing in wear and tear. So this GoPod that I have is a 2017 model. I'm currently recording this in 2025, so at the moment my GoPod is 8 years old. I am its third owner, although technically I'm more like its second owner because from what I gather, the first person who bought this GoPod, he bought it for him and his wife to go away in, but his wife absolutely hated it, so he sold it pretty quickly onto the second owner who kept it for a fair while. I believe she mainly went to festivals in it, and then I am its third owner. Now, according to Google, a well-maintained caravan can last 15 to 20 years. So it's not old, but at the same time, it's not new. Now, this pod has been looked after throughout almost its entire life. It has been serviced every single year, and any problems or any things that needed doing in terms of maintenance have been done. Now, my caravan just had its 2025 service literally earlier this week, and it passed everything. So at the moment, there is no structural problems in the caravan. There are a few little cracks in the shell. I have a little one in the roof. That was there when I first bought it. I'm not quite sure if it happened just after I bought it or whether I bought it with it. It was a very, very small hairline crack in one of kind of the dips where the water flows off from the roof. But I told the guy who came to service it to have a look at it. He said it was very tiny. What he did is he drilled a small little hole at the bottom to stop it getting any bigger, and then he covered it in sealant. That crack has not got any bigger. I've not had any damp come in from it. That was done it was done when I pretty much first bought it, so it was done over 2 years ago now, and I've not had any problems with it. The other little cracks are in the front box and also where some hinges are, but they don't affect the structural integrity of the caravan, nor are they in places where I have to worry about water getting in. So now let's talk about wear and tear, because I think the GoPod is holding up very well, especially when you consider how much I actually use it. So if we look at the floor, it looks pretty much as good as new. And I am in and out this caravan all day. My dog is in and out all day. There's his claws, there's my boots. I drop stuff on the floor. I've spilled stuff on the floor, and it looks fine. When we look at the worktop surfaces, again, they've held up really well. It's not as though you're getting any discoloration or wear from where I keep putting things on them. The only thing I do have is that the plastic trim sometimes comes off a little bit, but I just push that back on again. The few little areas that are showing wear and tear include the brackets that hold all the cupboards together. So a few of them have kind of cracked. Obviously very easy to replace, you just get a new one and stick it on. I had a cupboard door fall off, I don't know if you remember that in one of the future vlogs. They're put on with very small screws, and I think it's just MDF, so with the travel and the vibrations, they just fall out quite easily. I just replaced it with some larger screws, very simple fix. The pop top is probably the biggest area where you can see the most wear and tear. It is very discoloured now. There is a hole in it, and the elastic that goes around the outside of the pop top is well, not very elastic anymore. But it still functions, it's just not the nicest thing to look at anymore. Another part of wear and tear, I'm just looking at it, is up on the shelves. There's quite a few scratches along the top. I believe that was done from the previous owner. I think she said she put tins up there once, and when she was driving, the tins moved about and hence scratched the back of the board. So that could probably go down to a user error more than wear and tear. Oh, I do have a broken zip. So all the upholstery in the Caravan can be removed for cleaning. So when I got back from my adventure, I unzipped all the cushion covers, I put them in the washing machine, and then when I was putting them back on again, I was pushing the cushions back into the covers because they're a very, very tight fit. And as I was zipping it up, I broke the zip. Now again, it's a very easy fix. I just need to take it to a seamstress and it'll be done in no time. And everything else that I've mentioned, they're all minor things. None of them affect the practical use or the safety of the GoPod. So let's talk about maintenance and what have I had to do in order to help keep my GoPod in this condition? Well, honestly, not a lot. It pretty much looks after itself. The only thing that I make sure to do is to get it serviced by a qualified person every single year. So you want someone who is AWS certified, so that means they're part of the approved workshop scheme. And just get one of them guys or girls to come and service the Caravan every year. They will check everything and they will also do all the maintenance stuff, such as applying grease where grease needs to be applied. Now, servicing your Caravan is not a legal requirement. I do think that it is an insurance requirement, but I think, depending on whoever you're insuring with, I think they only require it every 2 years. But I just get mine done every single year. It flags any small issues and any repairs that need doing can be done at that time. So everything pretty much gets sorted in the service, but there have been a few extras that have required an additional payment in order to help maintain the Caravan. So those include new tyres. Usually it's not wear, so usually you're not wearing the tread down on the Caravan. Usually it's just literally time. So I believe that the Caravan tyres have to be changed every 5 to 7 years, mainly just because the rubber starts to degrade on them. Another thing I've had to pay for is a new battery. That was put in literally last week. So the battery that came with the GoPod when it rolled off the factory lasted a good 8 years, which I think is pretty decent for a leisure battery, but it had just come to the end of its life, so I've got a new battery this week. Another thing which needed paying for was a new gas pigtail. So again, you don't wait for these to wear down. The last thing you want is a hole in your gas pipe. They should be changed every so many years. I can't remember how many years it is, but again, when someone comes to service your Caravan, they will check the pigtail because they are date stamped. So that's pretty much all I've had to pay for in terms of maintenance for my GoPod. And really, you would pay for them in any Caravan. You would need new tyres after 5 to 7 years. Your gas pigtail would still need to be changed. Your battery isn't going to last forever. So overall, my maintenance bill for this little pod has been very small. Now, one of the biggest worries when it comes to owning a Caravan is damp. Now, damp usually happens when the Caravan isn't in use and it's sat still in storage. Now, I am usually out in my GoPod most months. However, because I've just moved house, it has been sat on my drive for the last 5 months. But luckily, I didn't get any damp from that, and I know for certain because it has just been damp checked during the service last week. Now, when I store the GoPod, I tend to clean the outside of it, and then I put its cover on just to help protect it from the weather. And then when it comes to the inside, I clean the inside. I lift all the cushion covers up so that the air can circulate. I also leave all the cupboards open because there's some vents in the cupboard. I hang up these like dehumidifier bags. So I put about 3 or 4 of these in. So they take moisture in out of the air, capture it, and then turn it into liquid at the bottom. So I will come into the caravan every now and again just to check on those damp bags, and any that are full, I will just change them out for new ones. I'll also, if I'm in the house and it's a nice dry day, I'll just open the door to the caravan and just, again, let some air in, let it circulate, again, just to prevent any damp. I'll also move the caravan every now and again so it's not sat in the same place, and I'll come in and check in on the battery. Again, this battery was dead this time, so that wasn't a check out to do, but if I had a working battery, I would have came in and just checked on it every now and again to see how it was holding up and just to make sure that the solar was still trickle feeding it. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to do to maintain it. The main thing is just the yearly service. That pretty much takes care of most things. So let's start with the appliances. So the only appliance that I've got in this GoPod that came as standard is the fridge. And that works absolutely fine, exactly the same as the day I got it. I would like the fridge to work better off-grid. When you're off-grid, it becomes more of a cool box. You can run it off gas, but then you've got to lift it up and take it out, and you've got to run it outside. So that's my only qualm with it. But in terms of its functionality, it's still doing what it was meant to do on the day I bought it. Oh, I do also have my 2-burner gas hob. Again, it works absolutely fine, nothing wrong with it. One of the buttons does get a little bit stuck. You've got to really press it down in order to fire it up. But I mean, that's minor. It still does it. Once you've got the knack to it, it works absolutely fine. I don't think that you can classify the tap and the sink as an appliance, but just to let you know, that is working fine as well. So now let's talk about features, because this GoPod did come with a few other extras. So it's got an external plug socket. I've never used it. I don't know what you would use it for. Maybe it's because I don't have an awning. I think if you had an awning and maybe another room, you might want to plug something in, like maybe a light or a radio or something. I don't use it. I also have an external barbecue point. Again, I don't use that because I'm kind of the opinion that if I want to have a barbecue outside, I would want it to be a proper barbecue on coals. If I'm just going to set up a gas barbecue, then I might as well just cook on my gas hob. Personal opinion, but there you go. It has got an external gas point. I also have an external aerial point. Not really a thing for me. I don't watch television. If I am going to sit and watch anything in this caravan, it's probably going to be something off Amazon Prime or something. So again, something that I've never used. Now it has got a 100-watt solar panel on the pop top, which I think was an upgrade at the time. I could be wrong. I think that the standard was 80 watt and then this was upgraded to 100 watt. Again, I could be wrong on that. It does still work. It was checked on the service, and it does trickle charge the battery, but it's not powerful enough to go off grid for very long, probably only for about 5 days with minimal electric use. So now let's talk about modifications. Have I done anything to my GoPod? The answer to that is no, I've not done anything. However, the previous owner did have an aftermarket motor mover fitted onto the GoPod. That is still working absolutely fine. I did have a problem at one point with the bearing because it started clicking as it was turning, but the motor mover was still under warranty and they came out and they fixed it, replaced the bearing free of charge. And again, I've not had a problem with it since. But any problems with the motor mover are obviously nothing to do with GoPod because it wasn't fitted at or with GoPod. It was aftermarket fitted. But I will say that if you are thinking of getting a GoPod, get a motor mover fitted. I know a lot of people laugh about it because they think, what are you having a motor mover put on such a small caravan for? Obviously, these people have never tried to push 750 kilograms uphill through deep gravel. It's still heavy and it's still a lot of weight. If you are on a flat and smooth surface, then yes, you can pull the caravan about easily enough. But if you've got to stop it from rolling downhill, or if you need to push it uphill, then 750 kilograms is a lot of weight. And you will be very thankful that you have a motor mover. A motor mover is also very handy when you are leveling the caravan. So if you need to put a leveling block under one wheel, then I will use my motor mover to drive the caravan up that leveling block. It saves me having to get in and out of the van. Now, I have thought about modifying the GoPod, and if I was going to make any modifications to it, it would be the electrical system. So I would try to make it more capable of going off-grid. I would look at upgrading the solar panel, upgrading the battery, maybe putting 2 batteries in, and I would also look at getting an inverter so I could run my 3-pin plug sockets and charge my laptop, etc., whilst I was off-grid. But when I've looked into that and I think of, okay, how much that conversion would cost, and then I would look at how much money I would save on campsites and how long I would have to go away for in order to get that money back again, it just doesn't seem like a cost-effective thing that I would want to do right now. I'm always going to be on campsites. I'm never going to be parked at the side of the road in my caravan. So I'm always going to have to pay campsite fees. So therefore, shelling out hundreds of pounds for this upgrade, is it going to be worth it in the long run? I'm not quite sure yet. And first up, what is the GoPod like in different weather conditions? So let's start by talking about hot weather, because it is currently a very hot day today. It's about 22 degrees Celsius, not much of a breeze. So I'm currently sat in the pod. I have the back door open, the pop top up, and both windows open. And it is warm in here, but it's not as warm as outside. So it's still relatively cool. And I don't know if you've been able to see, but Winston is actually down here sleeping, and he's obviously comfortable enough to sleep. He's not overheating and he's not panting. The only problem I do have is when there's midges outside. Now, the windows do have a fly mesh on them, but the mesh isn't fine enough to stop a midgie from getting through. So you do have to shut the windows, you have to shut the door, you have to close the pop top, and you have to put a fan on because it does get quite warm in here. So that is the only problem. But I assume that you would have that problem with most caravans, except from maybe the more luxurious ones that have air conditioning. And I'm sorry if you can hear my dog snoring. He's very comfortable right now. So let's talk about windy conditions. I do not like being in this GoPod in very windy conditions because it shakes. Especially if you're on a pitch where the wind is coming in at the side. You can try and reposition the GoPod, and yes, it's a little bit less windy and a little bit less rocky if the wind comes from the front. But usually you'll find that by the time you've moved the caravan, the wind will probably change direction. It's sod's law. So I tend to just leave it and I sit in here and I grin and bear it. And a few little shakes are okay. But if you are in strong wind, it really shakes. And it can almost be like Chinese water torture because it comes at, there's no kind of rhythm to it. You'll just kind of get a massive shake and then it'll relax and you have another shake and you can't relax, and I can't sleep when it's windy. Now, I'm not sure if this caravan shakes more than other caravans because it is lighter, and also it only has 2 steadies at the back, whereas bigger caravans tend to have steadies at the back, at the front, and if they're really large, they will also have them in the middle as well, which will obviously help to steady the caravan in winds. But in the GoPod, be prepared for a bit of shaking. And it can also get quite drafty. That back door doesn't have the best seal, so it just kind of shuts, but it's not like a sealed shut, if that makes sense. It just closes. So the door does get drafty, and a couple of times I've had to shove like tea towels at the top of the door just to help stop the wind coming in. I will also mention that the pop top is not a fun thing to have in the wind because it makes a racket. It shakes and the wind blows through it and it's drafty and it's just noisy and it's not pleasurable. Now, the pop top is very secure, so I've never had to worry about it breaking or flying off or anything happening to it. The pop top will gladly stay up in high winds. However, I do not like it being up in high winds because I can't stand the rattle that comes from it as the wind rushes through the pop top. So I always have to put it down. And then I'm stuck inside the pod and I can't stand up. So trying to cook, trying to go to the toilet, trying to do anything that isn't just sat here becomes very difficult. And if you have high winds for 2 or 3 days, it soon starts to get frustrating and you start to feel very cramped. So now let's move on to talk about wet weather. So in the rain. Now again, I've not had any problems with anything leaking or any water ingress or any rain getting inside of the GoPod. So that is a big plus. My only problems with the rain is that when you go outside in the rain, when you come back in, there's no bathroom in the GoPod, so there's nowhere to hang all your wet clothes and waterproofs. My method at the moment is just to hang a few hooks up near the door. I put my waterproofs on that and I put a towel at the floor to absorb any dripping water, and that's kind of my makeshift solution for it. When you're in the caravan in light rain, it's lovely because you can sit inside, listen to the rain pitter-patter, maybe have the window open, and it's a nice feeling of being in the caravan with some gentle rain going on outside. However, if you are in the caravan in heavy rain, it is deafening. It is not a pleasurable experience. The rain bounces off the roof. You feel as though you are in a tin can. You have to turn the volume up on your iPad to try and watch anything. And there's been many of nights where I have been woken up because of the rain. It's like the sound has just been deafening and I've had to try to get to sleep. So I would recommend you get some earplugs if you are traveling in the rainy season. So now let's talk about cold weather. And I really enjoy being in my GoPod when it's cold and frosty outside, because inside it does get very warm and cozy cozy. The heating runs off gas and electric, so if you're on electric hookup, use the electric. If you're off grid, use the gas. The only problem that I have with the heating is the location of the vents. They're over here, so when the bed is set up, they blow hot air out. So when the bed is up, it has to blow the hot air the length of the bed before it gets out into the caravan. So that's my only kind of problem with it, is the location of the vents. However, I just have an external electric heater that I set up. So when the bed is up, I just use that electric heater. But once the pod is warm, and it does heat up very quickly because it's a very small space, it is a very cozy, warm environment. I can easily keep this at 22, 23, even 24 degrees if I wanted to. But I usually keep it around 20 degrees Celsius when I'm in the pod in winter. If you turn the heating off, the temperature will go down quite quickly. Although this is insulated, it is still a caravan. I lose hot air through the pop top, through the vents, and also through the drafty door. So yeah, it does get cold, but just leave the heating on. Turn it up full to get the pod warm, and then I just turn it down to like a maintenance heat, and it'll just turn on and turn off as and when it needs to in order to try and keep an ambient temperature. But yeah, I never have to worry about being cold in my GoPod when I'm traveling in winter. So now we've gone through the 4 main types of weather, let's talk about if the GoPod is still comfortable for my typical use. Now, if you would have asked me this before I got the GoPod, I would have said that the only thing that I was concerned about would be making the bed up every night. I thought that job would quickly get old and tiring. And don't get me wrong, there are some nights when I'm tired and I sit here and think, oh, I've got to pull the bed out, I've got to make the bed up, I've got to get rid of the table, I've got to pull the slats out. I'm still not a fan of these slats. They fall off a lot, but I've kind of got a bit of a technique now to pull these bed slats out straight. But yeah, I thought that would be my biggest bugbear, and I thought that would be the one thing that would start to annoy me the most. However, I kind of don't mind it. I mean, yes, there's the odd night that I don't want to have to do it, but overall, it's not something that overly bothers me. I know some people have to have a fixed bed. I'm kind of not one of them. I'm okay to make the bed every night. But one thing that is starting to really bother me, and it's probably grating on me more than I thought it would, is that I don't have a shower room. I want somewhere to hang my waterproofs. I want hot water. I want a shower. and I want a toilet that I don't have to squat 30 centimetres off the floor to use. So in the pod you do have a toilet. You have a chemical toilet that slides into a cupboard, which is great, you know, in the middle of the night, first thing in the morning, etc. However, when you want to use the toilet, I've got to shut the back door, I've got to shut all the blinds and windows, I've then got to squat about 30 to 40 centimetres from the floor in order to go to the toilet. And it feels a little weird because I've got like my kitchen facilities right next to me, and I've got my bed right next to me, and I've got my desk right next to me, and the fridge. You feel like you're going to the toilet in your living room. It's a weird feeling to get used to. And then you got to pop it all away, and then you got to open everything back up again, and it's a bit of a faff. And like I said, it's not far off the floor, so you've got to have good knees in order to squat down and get back up every time you want to go to the toilet. So in order to have an actual shower room with a more fitted toilet in, I would very much prefer. I also really want to have a shower so that I can go onto campsites that don't have shower facilities. So at the moment, I can only book onto bigger campsites that have all the showers and toilets because I don't have one. However, there are these smaller certified sites where they only have up to 5 pitches, but because they're smaller, they don't have all the extra facilities. Now, of course, I can go and stay on them, and I can stay on them for a couple of days, but I can't stay on these type of sites for a considerable length of time because I don't have a shower. Now, I know there's going to be people in the comments saying get a pop-up tent and get a shower pump and all that stuff. I travelled in a tent before I got the caravan. I've done the whole showering outside thing. I don't want to have to do it again. I want a shower in my caravan with hot water. And I want to be able to go to these small, quirky and quiet campsites rather than the bigger campsites that I've previously had to go to. So yeah, that's the only thing that's really starting to bother me now. Am I going to keep my GoPod? Well, I will say that after my 2-month trip where I went to the Outer Hebrides and I had pretty much almost 2 months of bad weather, I think I realised that I now want a bigger caravan. Only a little bit bigger, but a bigger caravan that has a bathroom so I can go to these certified sites, so that I can shower, so that I have hot water, so that I can stand up throughout the whole caravan, so I don't have to bang my head. I don't have a pop top to contend with, putting it up and putting it down and being hunched over. I want a little bit more space, and I want to be a little bit more comfortable on these longer trips. So I do want to upgrade. However, I can't afford to upgrade just yet, because in order for me to get a caravan that's a little bit bigger, I'm probably going to also have to upgrade my van. Now, I love my van, but I know that I'm not going to get much for her in terms of resale. So in order to get a newer vehicle with a bigger towing capacity, I am going to have to put up a fair bit of money. So I'm going to have to invest in the vehicle. And then obviously when I upgrade the caravan, I'm going to have to put up even more money in terms to buy a newer and bigger caravan. And also in the last year, I just bought a new house and I moved my life from England to Scotland. So now isn't a good time for me to be spending even more money upgrading my vehicle and upgrading my caravan, especially when there's nothing really wrong with them. My van just had its MOT in service, passed its MOT, no problem whatsoever. It's only got 45,000 miles on the clock. She's running brilliantly. As mentioned, the caravan is structurally sound. It just passed its service. There's nothing wrong with it. So the only reason for me to upgrade is just to make my life a little bit more comfortable. However, I can't afford that luxury at this moment in time. So I will be keeping my GoPod for at least another year. And then we'll see where I'm at next year. I may have to keep her for another 2 years. Who knows? And who knows what will happen in life in those 2 years. But for now, she's staying. However, on every adventure, I am going to be wishing that I had a bathroom. Now, if you want to know more about my GoPod, then I will link to a playlist in the description box below. And that will include all my GoPod videos. Things such as a GoPod tour, so I show you around the pod and what's in here. I also have a video where I go through all my favourite accessories that I bought for the GoPod, and of course my 1-year review video if you haven't seen that already. But if you have any questions, pop them in the comments below and I will do my best to answer. But thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next adventure. Good boy. He's a good boy. I know. I'm recording. I know. Good sausage.